Hi, I'm Mark. This is Mark's Tech Vlogs on YouTube, and if you've been around on this channel for a while, you'll know that one of the things I'm really enthusiastic about is how you can make your dumb things at home smart rather than having to buy brand new things. And that's why I'm really excited today to bring you this review of the SOMA Tilt and SOMA Connect, a way of making your blinds smart. So today's review is all about how you make your Venetian blinds smart, or in fact any kind of blind with a twist to open rod. And I'm going to be talking about two products in this video. I'm going to be talking about the SOMA Tilt, which actually attaches to your blinds, and the SOMA Connect, which allows you to have things like out of home control and use it with IFTTT and various voice assistants. I've been using these for about a week and a half, and this is my review of using those. Now, most of you watching this have probably never heard of SOMA before, or if you have, you're trying to find reviews about the products before buying them. Now, SOMA are a company who largely focus around making blinds smart, and so they've got two core products, the SOMA Tilt and the SOMA Smart Shades 2. The SOMA Tilt is for Venetian style blinds with twist or open rods, and the Smart Shades 2 are for your kind of traditional pull cord blinds. And then they've got the SOMA Connect, which kind of acts as an optional bridge. This enables you to have out of home control and use it with a whole variety of other services. The SOMA Tilt itself costs between £90 and £120, depending if you catch it at the right time for a sale, and then the Connect costs between £40 and £80, again depending on if there's a sale on. Another thing to note for UK customers is thanks to Brexit you will have to pay some VAT when it comes into the country. So let's start off by talking about the Tilt, because this is the main device, and I want to start off by talking about the design. So the Tilt is a white block with a flexible cord which attaches to your blinds. It's not an especially small device and is actually much bigger than I was expecting it to be. It does however have rounded corners, which actually makes it look a little bit softer. The colour of it also means that because most window frames are white, it does sit quite inconspicuously. This device only has one input, and that's for the power cable. This is a jack style power cable. One of the really nice things about the Tilt is that it also comes with a solar panel which you can attach. This is a really nice eco-friendly way of keeping your SOMA Tilt topped up with battery. It also avoids the need to try and stretch a charger cable up there at various points, because you can just have the solar panel plugged in all the time. Now of course how effective this is going to depend on where the sunlight hits your house and the time of year and which direction your house faces. For me, I found it's basically enough to keep it topped up, but not enough to get it up to 100% yet. This leads us nicely to talk about installation and setup. Now setting up is relatively easy. You simply plug the Tilt into a power source and it makes a noise, and then you download the Smart Shades app and use that to set it up. On initial setup, it'll ask you to make sure your blinds are open, and then it'll go through a process of getting you to set them closed down and closed up. From there, it works out what open is. You can then scroll in the app on your blinds to open or close these. One of the things I did find when setting it up is that it took a little bit of fiddling around to get it attached to the blind securely. The other thing I found when I first set it up is I put the Tilt a little bit too close to the blinds, and so the cable got a little bit tangled. So you want to make sure there's a reasonable distance between the two. It needs to have a little bit of give, but not so much it gets tangled. How I've got it now that you can see is pretty much about right. The other thing to say in terms of setup is that if you don't get the calibration quite right for open and close, you can go back and adjust it. This, however, does require you to go through the whole process again. In my opinion, setting it up is a little bit fiddly, especially with all of the up and down as you get your blinds set up. However, I don't think there is actually a better way of doing it with something so precise as opening and closing blinds. Once you've got it set up, you can use the Smart Shades app on Apple or Android to open or close your blinds, and you can even group them together and set up schedules. It's worth saying that with the Tilt on its own, that's where the functionality ends really. If you want to be able to open and close your blinds from your phone when you're close by, just using the Smart Shades app, then that's fine. However, I think it's worth buying the SOMA Connect, especially as surely the whole point of a smart home is to automate things and bring everything together in one place, rather than have 1,000,001 different devices and apps. So let's talk about the SOMA Connect. So the SOMA Connect is a reasonably small bridge that enables you to have voice control and work with Samsung SmartThings and IFTTT, and it even has an API in case you want to customize things yourself. Whilst it is an essential device to use with your Tilt or your Smart Shades, it's not the prettiest device in the world. And what I mean by that is that the white box around the outside is fine, but there's lots of extra ports on the side of it. There's USB ports and HDMI and memory card slots and all sorts. And the reason for that, and if you dive into the help section on the SOMA website you can find this out yourself, is that actually the SOMA Connect is basically a Raspberry Pi. This does mean, however, if you're slightly more techie, you can install the Pi software yourself on your existing Raspberry Pi. If you're not so techie, then you can get the SOMA Tilt and just hide it away somewhere. Setting up the Connect is also done in the Smart Shades app, although it's not necessarily where you'd expect it to be. Setting it up is basically as simple as connecting it to your Wi-Fi network, and the really odd thing is that once you've set it up, it doesn't actually appear in the app as a device. If you want to go back and change something like your Wi-Fi network settings, then you actually almost have to reconnect to it again and put your phone close to it. What is really interesting, however, is that once you've done that initial setup, you can add it in Apple's HomeKit app by pressing the plus and looking for an accessory that's not listed. From then, your blinds also pull across into that app. And that's how I've been using it most of the time, because actually just having the button in my home app on my phone and on my notification screen is really useful. Likewise, the Connect allows you to use an Echo Skill or IFTTT or a whole variety of things. And connecting to it requires you to use a SOMA ID, which you can find by going into the Smart Shades app and opening up your SOMA Connect again. If you're going to do this, it's worth making sure you're either setting it up on a different machine so you can read that number, or that you take a screenshot of it, because as soon as you exit the app, you lose those details on the screen. Of course, this means you can cluster your blinds together, you can control it with your voice, with your favourite voice assistant, you can set up routines, and you can also make it with other things around your house. You can even do something like, if there was a knock on your door, to open your blinds by combining different skills and different apps. This is the sort of thing you do in IFTTT. And of course, the other thing the SOMA Connect gives you is out-of-home control. And so if you wanted to control your blinds while you're on holiday, you could do that. Now I'm just cut into a post-review version of me, because basically as soon as I finished filming this video, having used them perfectly fine for a week, I suddenly found I was having all sorts of connectivity issues with the SOMA Connect. And so I had a bit of a play around. I tried changing the Wi-Fi settings, and none of that was really working. I was finding it was dropping off signal really quickly. And so what I've done in the end is I've wired it in with the Ethernet cable. So the SOMA Connect, because it is a Raspberry Pi, has an Ethernet port. And so you can plug that straight into your router. And I found that that has basically improved the stability of it by like 100%, and it hasn't dropped out since, and it works with my voice, it works with IFTTT, it works with my home app. And so I'd actually recommend making sure you plug your SOMA Connect into an Ethernet port rather than using the Wi-Fi. Back to Mark and review. One really important thing to be aware of is that you need to make sure your SOMA Connect is close to your Smart Shades 2 or your SOMA Tilt. This is because it still needs to connect to those via Bluetooth, even though it relays that signal for them across your Wi-Fi and across to your phone wherever you are. So are the SOMA Tilt and the SOMA Connect any good? For me, this is a bit of a mixed answer, and I think there are good points and there are bad points to it. And so let me explain a little bit more about what I mean. So when it comes to the good, the SOMA Tilt on its own isn't particularly functional, and you really need to get the Connect. If you combine the Tilt or the Smart Shades with a Connect, then actually having that out-of-home control and the ability to create recipes and control it with your voice is incredibly useful, and it works really well every single time. For me, as someone who's well and truly into the Apple ecosystem, having it in my home app is also an absolute must for me. This is because that's the place I tend to control my smart home things most of the time. The ability to join different tilts together if you want several of them in one room is also incredibly useful. And really, once you've got the tilt set up initially, which can take some adjusting, it does work well every time. And this is where we come onto the bad stuff about it. And for me, this is because where I feel like the tilt is really let down is within the Smart Shades app. The app kind of feels like someone has just thrown it together and not really thought about user experience. There's not obvious buttons to fully open or close, you have to use a swipe gesture on your blinds, and some of the settings are just in really weird places. And don't get me wrong, some of the visuals on the home of the app are really quite nice. However, I kind of feel like they've gone for those visuals over some of the functionality. What this means for me is that basically, unless I'm checking the battery level, I don't use the Smart Shades app. I keep it on my phone, but I use the home app on my iPhone and some of the voice controls the rest of the time. And so the real question after all of that is to say, well, should you buy one of these? And I think if home automation for your blind is something you're really interested in, then this is really something you should look into. It's especially good if you've got custom size blinds and you don't want to have to buy whole new blinds. And of course, buying an accessory to upgrade your existing blinds is much better for the environment than having to buy whole new blinds and throwing your existing ones away. And generally, in using these, I've been pretty impressed. So much so that I've actually ordered 2 more for our other blinds in the living room. But what I will say is that I don't think these are an item for a smart home novice. If you're just getting started with smart homes, then check out things like Hey I'm Home and Philips Hue, because all of those things just work really well. I feel like if this was to be your first smart home product, you'd feel a little bit like it was a baptism of fire. I hope you guys have found this video helpful. If you've got any questions about this product, do stick it below. This is something I'm using every day, and so I'm really up for just responding to comments about how it works and how I'm finding it as time goes on. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like because that does help my channel out. Please consider subscribing to this channel, and I will see you guys again soon.